Good evening. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted that you're here. Thank you very much, Justin Garcia and David Sloan Wilson, for inviting me. You've got a really intellectually energetic campus. I'm really impressed with it. So anyway, I want to tell you about two things tonight. I and my colleagues have put 49 people who are madly in love into a brain scanner. 17 who had just fallen in love, 15 who had just been rejected in love, and 17 who report that they're still in love after an average of 21 years of marriage. So that's probably why I'm here. But I also, having done that, Match.com, the internet dating site, came to me 3.5 years ago, and asked me to start a new dating site for them. It's now called Chemistry.com. And 5 million Americans have taken my questionnaire on Chemistry.com, and 2 million in 39 other countries have taken it. And my question was, why do you fall in love with one person rather than another? I had spent all these years trying to figure out what happens in the brain when you fall in love. And then my next question is, why would somebody say we have chemistry? And somebody else say, we didn't have any chemistry. Is there something about our human chemistry that draws us to some people rather than others? So tonight I want to first talk about the brain scanning and what love is and why it evolved, and then go into the subject that's at the moment dearest to my heart, why him, why her? In the jungles of Guatemala, there stands a temple. It's built by the grandest sun king of the grandest city-state Tikal, of the grandest civilization of the ancient Americas, the Maya. The man who built it was Casacanchawel. He stood over 6 feet tall in the 700s AD. He lived into his 80s, and he was buried beneath this monument in somewhere around 720 AD. And Mayan inscriptions report that he was deeply in love with his wife. And so he built a temple for his wife facing his. And every spring and autumn, exactly at the equinox, the sun rises behind his temple and perfectly bathes her temple with his shadow. And as the sun sets on the equinox, behind her temple in the afternoon, it perfectly bathes his temple with her shadow. Today, some 1,300 years later, these two lovers still touch, still kiss from the grave. Around the world, people love. They sing for love. They dance for love. They compose poems and stories about love. They retell myths and legends about love. They have love charms, love potions, love magic. They pine for love. They live for love. They kill for love. And they die for love. Anthropologists have now found evidence of romantic love in 170 societies, and not in one culture in the world where they've actually looked have they not found it. There was, so far, no negative evidence. In fact, I was recently in Istanbul, and I was so tired. I was in their archaeology museum, and I was sort of leaning against a glass case, and I sort of looked down, and there was this sort of fist-sized lump of clay, and it was incised with cuneiform, and it said on the little sign beneath it, it said, the first love poem, 2037 BC. So the first love poem is from the ancient Sumerians. It's over 4,000 years ago. I don't know anything about cuneiform, but my guess is that he did the equivalent in his poem of saying, email me, send something, tell me that you love me. Around the world, people express love in many of the same ways. But in fact, so many people describe love differently that I've come to believe that we've evolved I divide love into three really distinctly different brain systems. The sex drive, associated with testosterone in both men and women. W.H. Auden called it an intolerable neural itch. Pablo Neruda called it an eternal thirst or an infinite ache. You can feel it not even for a particular person. You can feel the sex drive when you're driving along in your car, when you read a book, when you watch a movie, when you think of something while you're sitting in a chair. It doesn't necessarily focus on one particular human being. The second of the three brain systems is romantic love. That focus, the craving, the possessiveness. I'll talk more about it in a minute. People call it passionate love, obsessive love, being in love, infatuation. I think they're all combinations of the same thing. George Bernard Shaw summed up love, I think, very well. He said, love consists of overestimating the differences between one woman and another. And indeed, that's what we do. And I and my colleagues have now begun to figure out some of the brain systems that are involved. Certainly, dopamine is, and I think also norepinephrine is. That's what gives you the pounding heart, the sweaty palms, the stammering, and low levels of serotonin, which is what I think gives you the obsessive thinking. Of all of the characteristics of romantic love, I think the most, the core of it is that you can't stop thinking about this person. There's somebody camping in your head. And the last of the three brain systems is attachment. Other scientists have associated with different brain chemical systems, oxytocin and vasopressin. And in fact, these three brain systems can be very well connected to each other. For example, when you fall in love with somebody, dopamine is going up, and suddenly every single thing about that person becomes sexually attractive to you. Yesterday it was another nice guy at the gym, or a good-looking woman sitting in your French class, and all of a sudden, every single thing that they do is sexual to you. Just the way they hold their pencil or walk to down the hall. Everything about them becomes sexual, and I think it's because, at least in part, because elevated activity in the dopamine system triggers testosterone and shoots up the sex drive. And of course, that's the whole point of romantic love. I mean, it's to trigger the sex drive and start reproduction. But can you have casual sex with somebody and trigger romantic love? Well, not always. Most liberated adults have had casual sex, even hoping, in fact, that love, and it hasn't happened. But it can happen. And the reason that it can happen is because any kind of sexual activity drives up dopamine in the brain. And in fact, right after orgasm, there's a real peak, a little spike of norepinephrine also, and can push you over the thresholds of romantic love. And as a matter of fact, Justin Garcia and Chris Raber did a study right here in which they looked at hooking up. And in their study, something like 50% of the women and 52% of the men reported that they went into the hookup, I hope I got this right, hoping that they would trigger a longer relationship. And unconsciously, it certainly is possible. I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. All I'm simply saying is casual sex is not casual. Something happens unless you're so drunk you can't remember it. Something happens. You either can't stand the person. As a matter of fact, in one study of kissing, 50%, over 50% of men and women both reported that the first kiss was the kiss of death. They never wanted to kiss the person again. But long and short is, sex can also trigger feelings of attachment. Because with orgasm, there's a real flood of oxytocin and vasopressin associated with feelings of attachment. So I don't care who you sleep with, but just keep an eye out to the fact that casual sex is not casual. You are playing with some of the most powerful brain systems on Earth. And indeed, I think they evolved for very particular reasons. I think the sex drive evolved to get you out there looking for a whole range of people. I think romantic love evolved to enable you to focus your mating energy on just one at a time. And I think that attachment, that third brain system, evolved to enable you to tolerate this human being at least long enough to raise a single child together as a team. The problem with these three brain systems is although they are often connected, they're not always connected. You can feel deep attachment for one person while you feel intense feelings of romantic love for somebody else, while you feel the sex drive for a range of people. You can even lie in bed at night and swing from deep feelings of attachment for one person to wild feelings of infatuation or romantic love for somebody else. It's as if there's a committee meeting going on in your head as you're swinging from one brain system to another. As Plato once said, he said, when the mind is thinking, it's talking to itself. And indeed, you couldn't do this if in fact these brain systems were always connected with each other. So I think that these brain systems became somewhat connected so that we could search for sex, fall in love, form a pair bond, and rear our children as a team. I think that they're somewhat disconnected so that we can do some other things on the side. We, in anthropology, call it EPCs. We politely call it EPCs, extra pair copulations. But adultery is extremely common around the world. I'm not suggesting it. I'm just simply saying that I think we evolved what I call a dual reproductive strategy, a tremendous drive to fall in love and pair up, a restlessness very often in long relationships, a tendency towards a divorce and adultery, and remarriage. Samuel Johnson once called remarriage the triumph of hope over experience. And indeed, this is what we do. But there are different personality types, of course, which I will go into. So, long and short of it is, we've got these three brain systems, and the one that I have become most interested in most recently is romantic love. I wanted to study all three, and I've just started putting people in the machine, and I'm going to put somebody in a couple weeks from now, and try and trigger the brain while they are looking at very sexy pictures, and trigger the brain system for the sex drive, and also then romantic pictures, and then pictures of attachment. As a matter of fact, I just did it with my first person. He's writing an article for Esquire magazine, and so I said, well, you got to bring in a sexy picture of your wife, and we also have to have a neutral picture, and so that we compare the brain under both circumstances. So he brings in a wonderful picture of his wife. You could just see her back. It was very sexy, middle-aged woman, but very sexy picture. And he was going to compare this with Angelina Jolie, which we did. And in fact, he had more sexual response to his wife than to Angelina Jolie, for reasons I think I can explain, but never mind. Long and short of it is, the brain system I chose was romantic love, largely because I think in many respects it is the least subtle. Attachment, I thought, would be very difficult to really measure, but romantic love overwhelms you. It's an overwhelming experience when it happens, and so I thought it might be easy to measure in an MRI machine. So these are some of the characteristics. The first thing that happens when you fall in love is the person takes on what I call special meaning. As one man said to me, he said, the world had a new center, and that center was Mary Ann. And indeed, that person just becomes so special, then you focus on them. Every single thing about this person is special. Their car is different from any other car in the parking lot. Their book bag is different from any other book bag. The music they like is different from any other music. Everything about them is special. As a matter of fact, I would ask these people to tell me what they did not like about their sweetheart. And they could tell me. But then they swept that aside and just focused on what they did like. And that's dopamine. Dopamine is associated with focus. Real high energy, as one man in the South Pacific said, he said, I felt like jumping in the sky. Euphoria when things are going well, mood swings into horrible despair when things are going poorly. Real bodily reactions, pounding heart, emotional dependence. That was a difficult one. Before I put these people in the machine, I asked them a lot of questions about, because these machines are expensive and it's very time consuming, and you've got to get people who are really in love. And they have to trust me too. There's no secrets in an MRI machine, because you're not going to be, if they're suspicious or not trusting, you're not going to be measuring what you're looking for in the brain. So long and short of it is, one of the most difficult question for me to ask was,